Hello there. Welcome to the 40th episode of A Drink from Upstream. I don't know if 40 is a significant number or not, but this is episode 40. So I want to talk with you today about kind of some things that are taking place in our culture. And recently, my wife and I, back in June, we took a couple backpacking trips, and one of them just a little one-night overnighters. And one of them was on the Pacific Crest Trail up here in the North Cascades. And there's this one spot, a couple of miles in, where there's a large log that's laid across this creek, but it's elevated. It's probably, I don't know, maybe 6 to 8 feet above the ground, so that if you were to fall off of the log while walking across it, that wouldn't be super fun. And what was awesome is when you got on the log and started walking, the log started wobbling a little bit. Have you ever been on a bridge or something like that where as you're walking, this thing starts moving underneath you, and it gives you a little bit. It gives you a little bit of uneasiness. You're not super comfortable in a setting like that. Well, at least I'm not, and I don't know that a whole lot of people are. And so you take a kind of extra precaution, and you're hoping that you can just make it across there. And I think that is a little bit of what life is like right now for Americans. With everything going on, I'm here in the state of Washington, as most of you are that are listening, watching this. But across our country, life seems to be pretty wobbly. It feels like the ground that we're standing on is moving under us. There's shifting taking place that is significant. And this isn't new. We've been in this kind of scenario through various crises for quite a long time here recently. And it just seems like things are moving in a way that is causing most people to be very uncomfortable. Like they feel like they're going to fall off the wobbly bridge or the wobbly log. And I think that's kind of natural for us. And I've been reading in the book of Isaiah, and I want to share a couple of verses with you because in the days of ancient Israel, when Isaiah was the prophet, their society was pretty wobbly as well. Things were very uneasy for them, and there was a lot at stake in the shifts that were taking place, kind of like where we're at as a society. But I want to read this passage to you and kind of talk through it, and I think this is pretty powerful. So I've got my Bible here. It's Isaiah chapter 33, and it's verses 5 and 6. And it says this: "The Lord is exalted, for he dwells on high. He will fill Zion with justice and righteousness. He will be the stability of your times, abundance of salvation, wisdom, and knowledge. The fear of the Lord is Zion's treasure." So Zion here is kind of a poetic picture of the people of Israel, or the nation of Israel, and specifically maybe even the city of Jerusalem. And so he tells us here that the Lord is exalted. So that means, and it establishes that he dwells on high, that he's higher, though he is with us, which we're very grateful for. Though he is with us, he's above us. He's transcendent. That's kind of the theological term we use there. So he's with us, but he's transcendent. The Lord is exalted. He is higher than we are, which is good because he has a much better perspective and handle on things than we do. So then it says that he will fill Zion with justice and righteousness, and that he will be the stability of our times. So think for a moment, like if you could just picture yourself on this very wobbly bridge, and how would you feel if somebody were to stabilize that bridge, really strong guardrails, stabilize the bridge so you could get across it and be safe on the other side. This is what it is to walk with God in uncertain times, that he is our stability, that he is the possessor of justice and righteousness. If you're a follower of Christ, he is your stability. Though life on personal matters and on matters of what's going on in society, though those things can be very unstable, that God himself is your stability. He is on high, he's exalted, and he is your stability. Now, verse 6, abundance of salvation, wisdom, and knowledge. These are the things that come from God when he is our stability. Salvation, abundance of salvation, and wisdom and knowledge. And these are things that we need in life to get through these unstable times. We need him to be our stability. And when he is our stability, then there is an abundance of salvation, wisdom, and knowledge. And then this last phrase is kind of the key to it, right? The fear of the Lord is Zion's treasure. So remember, Zion is like the people of God. So if we were to translate that into, this was written under the Mosaic covenant, under the law of Moses, what we would call the Old Testament. But we are now living in the New Testament, in a greater and more progressive move into God's progressive revelation and his redemptive plan. And so we're living under this new covenant where it's eternal, where Jesus is the hinge pin to it all. And so the Zion here could be thought of not as ancient Israel, but as the people of God today, those who are followers of Christ, those who belong to God through faith in Jesus Christ. And so the fear of the Lord is Zion's treasure. So us having a deep reverence for God, having this is what the fear of the Lord is, to love God with a loyal love, to be loyal to him, and to have a deep reverence for him. This is what it means to fear the Lord. And when we live our lives in reverence to God, then that's our treasure. So that's where we find our stability. That's where we find our salvation, our wisdom, our knowledge. That's where we find this justice and righteousness that God provides, because he's exalted above all things. And so if you find yourself today on wobbly ground, if you find yourself today troubled by all of the unrest in our society, or maybe unrest that's going on in your own life, then go to Isaiah 33, verses 5 and 6. Meditate on those verses prayerfully and ask God to be your stability, because that's what he's promised. There you go, friends, a drink from Upstream.